Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Alex Sautke. I'm with Firely, and I'm your host for the next session. Our next talk is a Let's Build session on the Google Cloud FHIR APIs, data ingestion, management, and analytics, presented by Kalyan and Dharmesh. As this is a Let's Build session, we have enabled the chat feature here in Zoom. If you have any questions, please use the chat box and we will directly get back to you. But of course, you can also use the Hoover question and answer section to post your questions over there. We will also monitor Hoover as well. And with that, I would say we get started. Over to you, Kalyan.
Thank you, Alexander. Dharmesh, if you can pull up your slides. All right, welcome everyone. This is our session on Let's Build for the Google Cloud FHIR APIs. And this is the companion session to the tutorial that Dharmesh and I did yesterday on Google Cloud FHIR APIs and how to ingest, manage, and provide access to data. Next slide, please. Again, my name is Kalyan Pamarthy. I'm one of the product managers on Google Cloud Healthcare API team, and joined with me today is Dharmesh Patel, who's a solutions manager on our team. So together we'll be taking you through our Let's Build session today. Okay, so the logistics for this session are as follows. So we've got a Sandbox environment. It's called Quick Labs that we're going to use today for the hands-on tutorial and Let's Build. And so there's a setup process here. There's a form that we've created to enable access to this. And so to register and get access for our Sandbox, you can just go out and simply fill this form here. We just need your name and email to provision access to the Sandbox environment. So the link there is bit.ly Google-FHIR-access. And so if you go to that link, you'll see the form as I've shown in the first step there. Just fill out your name, email, organization, and we will enable access for you at the back end of the Sandbox. And then it'll take us maybe a minute to give you access. So we should be able to get to this pretty quickly. And then once you fill out the form, you can go to the second link, which is bit.ly Google-FHIR-build. So that's the Sandbox environment. It's also called Quick Labs, if you see the term Quick Labs anywhere. And so once you go there, you'll have to register with a password using the same email that you've used in the first step. And so that's how our Sandbox environment knows that that you're trying to access it with that email. Once you're done, you'll be forwarded to the lab. The link is the same. If by any chance you're getting access denied, that just means that it'll take us a minute to configure access for you at the back end. But if you go back to the same link in about a minute or two, you should be able to see what we have here in step number 3, which is our Let's Build lab. And from then on, you can just follow along in the instructions. And Dharmesh will be walking you through the process. We're here to answer questions. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat here or on the Hoover app. We're monitoring both. So we'll take a few minutes to give people time to request access. And so I'm just going to be enabling access here for those of you who are submitting the form. Dharmesh, if you can keep the slide up with the instructions for a few more minutes. Okay, so I've just added a whole bunch of emails to the system. So for those of you who filled out the form in the last couple of minutes, you should be able to click on the second link and access the sandbox. So there's a question in the chat about what the password is. So you can create any password you like. This is an account that you're creating for the sandbox. So feel free to pick a password. If anyone's having trouble accessing our sandbox, feel free to message in the chat, and I can respond back. So Meredith, if you go to the second link, Google FHIR build, you need to create an account. And once you create an account, you'll be sent to the lab. You can pick a password of your choice.
Kalyan, are we good to go?
Just let's give it 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Meredith, make sure you're using the same email that you submitted in the form. Okay, Dharmesh, let's give it a couple more minutes. I'm going to try to figure this issue out.
Yeah.
Okay, Dharmesh, I see we've got about 20 folks enrolled and ready to go. I'll keep looking at the issues we're having on the chat, so I think you can get started.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So I think what we are going to do today is once you get the access to the quick lab, and I think it should be pretty soon, or some of you already got the access, uh, you have to go through the 3 sections that we have in the quick lab. And the first section, it should not take more than 10 minutes to complete a section, but if you need more time, let us know. So there are 3 sections. The first section walks you through how to create a FHIR server in Google Cloud, and then how would you import the FHIR data. So we already have FHIR formatted data loaded in the Google Cloud storage buckets, and then you can load from those files the data into the FHIR server. That would be the first step, and we will execute some queries and do some insert update on the FHIR server. So that would introduce you to the FHIR standards sorry, the FHIR store configuration in Google Cloud. Then in the second section, we will go over the de-identification of the FHIR data and then implement streaming to BigQuery. So we will add the streaming configuration, and then it will stream your data to BigQuery. And then finally, we will do another form of transferring data from Firestore to BigQuery called export, bulk export of data from Fire server to BigQuery. And then we'll look at the Looker dashboards to access the data and build some dashboards. So this is the 30-minute lab, but it's broken down into 3 sections. And so what I'll do is I will be here. I can help you with anywhere you have a questions. I think we'll start with the section A first, and then we'll pause after you are done with section A, and I'll walk through the section B, and we'll take questions if anybody's stuck or if anybody have problems. We'll take a pause between A and B to resolve those, and then we'll move to B, so that people get time to catch up. And we have it more interactive sessions, and we can have a checkpoint in the middle. So these are the 3 things you will be doing basically in section 1. You will be configuring a FHIR server. You will be bulk importing data into the from the Google Cloud Storage into FHIR server, and then you will be executing few FHIR operations like create, get, search. So I'll leave you guys on that. And the quick lab environment looks like this. So once you log in, you have access. You will be able to access the quick lab. The 3 sections are on the left. You can access the sections directly, or you can read through the labs, and then you can follow the instructions along. And it's pretty basically you can do copy paste. And then as part of the lab, you can open Google Cloud Console by clicking over here, enter the username, password required to log into Google Cloud is available, and use your own credentials. Don't use the quick lab account that you just created for completing this Google Cloud side of the thing. And once you do this, you will get access to this particular GCP project. So it will look something like this. Over here, you will get a GCP project, and then you can, once you log in, then you can follow the instructions that way. So with that, I will let you finish the lab, the first section of the lab, and then I will wait here on the call. If there are any questions, I can address those. looks like we have no issues with getting access now, right, Kalyan?
Yeah, there's a lot of people enrolled at this point. There's a few others that have registered but not enrolled. So please message me in the chat if you're having trouble.
Yeah.
So everyone who submitted the form until this point has been added. So if you submitted the form, try to refresh the bit.ly Google FHIR build link, and you should have access. If not, you can send me a chat. Also, if you have any questions following along on the lab, also feel free to post it either to me privately or to everyone in the chat.
Those who have completed section 1 and was able to pull all the 11 patient resources from the FHIR server, please post a quick note that section A completed in the chat so that we know how many people have completed and we can move to section B. Thank you. If you feel comfortable, you can move forward with section B. Those who have completed section A, it's self-descriptive. I'll go over the instructions in a minute once I have good amount of responses back from everyone.
Ramesh, just a time check. We have about 17 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. I think we'll start the section B in a minute. So after you complete section 1, your in your GCP project, you should have dataset 1 like this. You should have a Firestore 1. And then if you've executed all the REST API calls, then the last one which pulls all the resources, all the patient resources out from the store, that would result into 11 different resources returned as part of the bundle. So you should be at this level right now. And so now, once you've completed this, you can go on to section B, which is um, how would you de-identify the data that you've just imported into your Firestore? And then how do you configure streaming on your Firestore so that it can stream the data from Firestore to BigQuery? That's what we are going to do in the section B. So in interest of time, I will follow all the steps here and showcase, and then you can parallelly do that. It would be advisable for you to do it along with me, so that will be quicker. Uh, and if you don't, I think there are questions, Kalyan, around the de-identification. I think we went over that in our previous session. We explained what de-identification is, so we could still
I'll answer
answer on.
them. Yep, I'll answer them. You can keep going, Ramesh. Thank you.
So on the step B, what we'll do is we'll first do the de-identification, and there is the first step to that is creating another Firestore called DID in the Google Cloud. So we already have one Firestore that we created in section 1. Now we are going to create another Firestore inside this. So that click create data store, then select the type of the data store, which is FHIR, which makes it a FHIR store. Then the ID will be DID, that's the name of the FHIR store. And then we don't need to set up PubSub for this DID FHIR store. And it should be of the same version as the source. And then we create it. And that would create another FHIR store in the data set one. That finishes our step one of B1. Then we will go back to dataset one, and then we will run the de-identify action. And then what we'll do is when we run the de-identify action, we will point our de-identify to the DID, which is the second data set. So our target will be DID, our source will be Firestore 1. So let's do that, de-identification, and that will complete this first step, and then we'll go and set up the stream. Okay, so here we'll pick the Firestore 1 in the actions on the right, click de-identify, and then we select the data set, which will be data set 1. Then we select the DID, which is the Firestore we just created. The data from Firestore 1 will be de-identified, and the de-identify meaning it will be redacted. All the person's identifiable information will be redacted and appended into this target data store. So when I run DID, it will run a long running transaction, and that long running transaction or long running operation, you can check the status of that under the operations tab on the console, and then till it is not finished, you have to wait. But I think it should finish in a minute or so. So that's the step to kick off the de-identification process. And then once it is de-identified, then what we will do is we will go and change the configuration on our Firestore to add the streaming support. And we'll do the next after the de-identification is done. So you can, okay. If you're getting this, I think there's a question on the Zoom chat that there is a policy update access denied issue for the permissioning, for setting the permissions to BigQuery. Okay, we will try that in a minute. I think this de-identification operation is now completed. So we will go ahead and create a data set. For streaming from FHIR data store to BigQuery, you'll have to first create the target BigQuery data set. So we will use this command to create it. We'll create the data set. So it says that this particular data set has been successfully created. We can browse through the BigQuery UI by going to the BigQuery. And you should see that under your project, you should have a data set 1 created, but there is nothing inside the data set. It's empty right now, right? And so let's follow along. So we have this, we've created. Now let's set the permission so that our Firestore can update or can stream the data to BigQuery. But I guess this is where the issues are. So maybe, okay. So do not have permission to access project this, or it may not exist. Okay, I think I'm having the same issue. Let me see. Maybe we'll have to take just the one gcloud command. Okay, I think this is the IAM permissions. Unfortunately, we have to assign the permissions to the lab, the quick lab resources. So that is the problem. Okay. Due to the quick lab environment, which doesn't allow me to set the permission as a quick lab user. Uh, Unfortunately, we cannot move forward from here. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go through the instructions in theory, uh, because I think we don't have appropriate permission granted to your GCP project that has been created into the quick lab. So I apologize for this small glitch. Uh, we can walk through the process of how you would do it otherwise, and then we can end this. And I apologize for this inconvenience. So as part of the next step would be, what this would let you do is, if you have a project owner permissions, then it will let you set the permissions so that your healthcare API or healthcare Firestore can stream data to BigQuery. And once you have that permission, once you set that permissions, then you can execute a patch command to update the Firestore and provide a streaming config on the Firestore, which would point your Firestore to the BigQuery dataset that we just created in this step one. And then it makes your Firestore ready to stream data to BigQuery. And then we can insert a resource into the Firestore. And in this case, we are inserting a patient resource. And after we do that, we can examine that into the BigQuery that the patient record has been created by executing the SQL. And that ends the section B. And then in section C, I think we'll do the same thing, but in section C, we will create another BigQuery dataset called DID, and then we will export. So we will run the export command on the Firestore to export everything at once to the BigQuery dataset, and then we will execute select queries on the BigQuery dataset to examine the data. And then finally, we have access to the Looker dashboard that you can access through this link, which you can still do. And then you can update the dashboard or play with it to drill different things and find out what you can learn from the data. This lab will be available till Saturday, and we'll try to fix the problem with the permission so that you can continue this lab later on. So,
Ramesh, will the Looker dashboard still work, just so folks can see how that looks?
yeah, Looker dashboard will work for sure. Yeah, so you can click on the Looker dashboard and you can interactively explore the patients. So there are two Looker dashboard. One is at the hospital level view for an healthcare administrator who can look at all the patients, all the inpatient visits, all the outpatient visits, and other metrics. And then there is a second dashboard which will let you examine parameters at the patient level. So in this case, information about a specific patient, Bobby Lemke, is available, and you can browse through that.
Yeah, and so for the excuse me, for the purposes of this hands-on lab, we've actually kept a static copy of the data, and so these Looker dashboards are running off of that data. So those will be available for you to play with right now, and we can get the permissions fixed after the session so you can go through the rest of the lab. And if anyone wants to follow up with us after the session, I'll just put my email address in the chat as well. Feel free to send us emails. We're also, Dharmesh and I are also in Zulip in case you want to reach out. We'll be happy to chat about any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. If there aren't any last-minute questions, I would say we hop over to the virtual fire bingo now as a evening activity. Well, at least evening for me.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, and see you around.
Thank you.